Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 4 of the K-3 summer series. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Go ahead and get checked in, get comfortable, grab your water, tea, coffee, any beverage you need for this session, and we'll get started in a bit. Okay, so again, good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to have you here. This is session 4 of the K-3 summer series, and today we're talking about assessment. So this series is brought to you in part from Foundations, the Atlanta Speech School, the James Cox Foundation, the National Grade Level Reading Campaign, and our friends over at Cox Campus, which I'm a part of, and I'm so excited to start with you today. So now I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Yvette Mans. I am an instructional designer and a content specialist at the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. And the Rollins Center is the professional development sector of the Atlanta Speech School. And we have a platform that a lot of you all are familiar with that is called Cox Campus. So that's who I am. Now let's get to know each other a little bit more. So I mentioned my role, and here are some fun facts about me. I am a New York native, born and raised, and like I mentioned, I work at the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy, but now I currently reside in metropolitan Atlanta in a city called Smyrna, and I love, love, love music. So now let's find out where you all are checking from. We're going to post the poll on your screen, and if you see your location listed, you can go ahead and click on the option that represents where you are from. Your choices are Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Maryland, North Carolina, and other. So please choose one of those, and then click on what your role is. And if you happen to be from another state outside of the specific ones that are specified in the poll, go ahead and leave that in the chat. Shout out to your home state, your hometown, where you're dialing in from today. Okay. Wow, I'm seeing South Carolina. I see another New York transplant to North Carolina. That's what the rest of my family lives in North Carolina. Washington, great job. We have about 65% of participants who've responded. So we have a couple more seconds for you all to answer these 2 questions, and then we'll get started. All right. So now let's take a look at what Cox Campus is and what resources are available on Cox Campus. I included this little screenshot of Cox Campus, but we're going to navigate that together. So I am going to share my screen, and give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see the Cox Campus homepage here. Or use the reaction poll to let me know if you can see the homepage. Not yet. Thank you, Dewana. I appreciate your response. You know how technology is. As soon as you get ready to share something, it wants to act a little wonky. All right. Can you all see the screen now? All right. Thank you. And before we go really deep into the session, I would like to just welcome you all here. I know that a lot of my friends here that are joining us are from Georgia, and we have already started going back to school. And if we hadn't started going back to school, we're getting ready to. So we know that your time is precious. And here at Cox Campus, we really value our educators and we value your time. And you're doing great work by being here and being ahead of the ball and making sure that you have the information to be able to make the decisions that are best for your students. Some norms about today's session. You all, there will be some time where we can talk and take ourselves off of mute and unmute yourself and put your video on and show your beautiful face, or you can stay low key and stay on mute, however you want to feel comfortable. We honor you in this space. And then we'll go over some learning goals and some objectives for this session as well. Pamela, it's nice to see your face. Hello, Ms. Brown. All right. So now here's Cox Campus. Cox Campus is funded through a generous donation from the Cox Foundation, and we've created a free platform for educators to use in order to get professional development, resources, discuss with other educators, and connect with like-minded individuals. So the way Cox Campus works is, I'm moving this Zoom bar out of the way. Okay, so the way that Cox Campus works is a lot of people on this list are already registered with Cox Campus, but if you're not, make sure you sign up, and it is free. It's a very free resource. My information is saved here, so I'm just going to give you a brief tour of what all is available on Cox Campus. When you log into Cox Campus, you will be met at your dashboard. And on your dashboard is a customized experience just for you that shows where you are in your courses, any resources that you have saved, and next upcoming tracks and events and activities that are available on Cox Campus. So your dashboard will look like this. Since the focus of today's session is K-3, we'll be diving into the K-3 section of Cox Campus as well as other resources. So in order to get to the courses, you can click on the word courses, and we have our featured courses, and you can scroll down to all courses, or you can sort by our newest ones. And we do have some new courses coming up as well. So in continuing scrolling downward, this is our focus for right now. I'm seeing a lot of individuals raising their hands. Does anyone have any questions in the chat right now? Okay. If you do have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or using the Q&A feature as well. All right. Now, let's go into assessing our students. So when we go into assessing our students, we're going to take a look at some of the courses and lessons and steps that are available here, but not yet. Remember, we're going to visit our learning goals. But for your own just knowledge of how to navigate Cox Campus's courses, you just click on the courses button, and then you can have opportunities where you can search using the toolbar, or you can just explore the courses that are available. We also have a discussion board where you can engage with other parents, families, teachers, general discussion. So we encourage you to engage with our educators there. Then the next tab has our resource library. In our resource library, there are free featured bundles, activities, and student-facing content and resources. I just got a private message from someone that said this is great, and I agree. There's some really great resources in here. So download them, use them. This is my mouth here from the 44 phoneme video. This is part of our phonological awareness course, but there are really quick snippets that are very valuable that we feature. So go ahead and explore the resource library when you get a chance. And then once you click on events, there's other events such as this one that we're attending, ones about family read-alouds and other great workshops too. And so if you have friends who are early childhood educators or they work in the preschool or pre-K capacity, they'll enjoy this. And then pop-up early learning opportunities for families, as well as summer learning paths for infants as well. So a plethora of resources here. And the greatest thing about Cox Campus that I love, which is something recent and new, is that you get certificates. So we've always offered certificates, but for K-3 educators, now we have the opportunity to get CEUs and continuing education units because we are IACET certified. So IACET is the International Association for Continuing Education and Training. So once you take our courses on Cox Campus, you will get CEU credits as well. And then you can just click and view your certificates, and all your certificates are in one place for you to share with other people in your school or your instructional coaches or in whichever capacity, or whoever wants to see, like, hey, what kind of PD have you done lately? Well, let me go to Cox Campus and show you all my certificates. And this coaching tab, that's kind of on my side, on the admin side, so you won't have that. But we do have a good coaching course that's recently launched, so we encourage you to check that out. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And we are going to go to the goals for this session. So let me stop the share. And so our goal today is to take a look at which assessment types are available on Cox campus for K-3 students. Oh, I'm gonna backtrack just. Okay, that's perfect. You can leave it there. All right, we're going to take a look at which assessment types are available for K-3 students and how to choose the best type of assessment to find out where we begin instructionally for students. And we're going to take a look at the K-3 assessment toolkit. So those are our goals for today. Now let's start out talking about why we assess. I like to be really transparent. And honestly, excuse the slide, I had to shift the picture over, but when I first started teaching many moons ago, I didn't understand the value of assessment. I thought it was something I just had to do. I just had to fill out the spreadsheet and get it turned in. And now I wish I had known the things I know now back then, because assessments give us so much insight. It gives us important information about where they start, where they can go, all the strengths and areas of growth for students, and different types of assessment give us information to help us guide instruction and to track progress. So here is a snippet from one of our courses that shows one of our instructional coaches, and she was reviewing some of the data and making instructional decisions based off of the assessments. But we'll jump more into that. So what does the research say about assessment? So Vanderbilt University has a really great statement about assessments, and it talks about how student assessments are arguably the centerpiece of teaching and learning. And so it's a big topic of discussion. And without some method of obtaining and analyzing evidence of student learning, we don't know if our teaching is making a difference or not. And that's why we're in this. We're in this to make a difference. We're not in it for any other reason. I have yet to meet someone who has said, I'm here for the luxurious 7-figure salary. We're all in this to make a difference. And so we can measure how much our students have gained from our lessons and where they can go and where they start from assessment. So I wanted to include this as a grounding statement for today. And now we're going to talk about which types of assessment should you use in your classroom. So when we think about assessing our students, if you've taken the course already, you may have noticed that we use the analogy of a student going to the doctor. So let's say, for instance, if a student goes to the doctor and they say, I have a tummy ache, the doctor is going to diagnose you and figure out what other symptoms and factors are in there to play to try to figure out exactly what you need. And that's what we do with assessments too. So let's look at the assessment types and what types we should use in our classroom. So this is another snippet here of our assessment types. And this is a screenshot from our course. And so in our course, it's called Assessing Our Students. In Lesson 1, Step 5, we talk about the different assessment types and categories. So do we have this video embedded in here? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to play this video for a second and look at one of our facilitators, Lori, as she administers an assessment, and we talk about the importance of the different types of assessment. So we can press play.
There are 3 major categories of assessments: diagnostic, formative, and summative. Each of these types of assessments provides us with different types of information or data. We can use this information before instruction begins, while learning is happening, and after instruction has taken place.
So Carrie-Elle, I'm here today with you to hear you read some words, okay? I want to hear all of the things that you have in your brain, okay? All of the things that you've learned, all of the things that you know, okay? You ready to do your best? You're going to do such a great job. Here's what we're going to start with, okay?
Here, Mrs. Green is administering a diagnostic assessment of Carrie-Elle's letter sound correspondence. A diagnostic assessment, like this one, can provide information about Carrie-Elle before instruction. Think of this as an assessment for instruction. It can help us in our planning to meet students where they are before beginning a course of study. Diagnostic assessments are generally given at the beginning of the school year. but they can sometimes be given at the middle or end of the school year if the student's progress suggests that we need to identify a more suitable program of learning.
You have been working so hard on your reading, and today you get a chance to show me how to use all the skills that we've been working on, and I want you to read this all by yourself. You're going to do it independently, okay?
Formative assessments provide information about students' learning during instruction. Formative assessment data can provide ongoing information on students' progress. This valuable data can help us make adjustments to our teaching at a time when addressing a need may be critical to the student's success.
Good morning, Shantae. How are you?
Fine.
Good. I'm Miss Mans. I work with your teacher a lot, and I've had the great opportunity to get to know you over the year. And if you remember, at the beginning of the year, I came to your classroom and we read some words together, and we figured out what kind of things you already know, so we know when you go on to third grade next year what your new teacher should work on with you. Okay?
Okay.
Today, we're going to read some words, and we are going to see what kind of areas you have to work toward and what things you've already mastered, okay?
Okay.
So this is for you.
After instruction, we can use summative assessments or post-assessments like benchmarks or end-of-unit tests to determine how much the student has learned.
The bug hid in the cab. Do not snag your dress on the elm branch.
Think of a summative assessment as an assessment of instruction. Just like a follow-up examination helps determine if your doctor's treatment was effective, summative assessments measure what the student has learned after the completion of a school year or a particular unit of study. The information Ms. Mans has gathered from Shantae's end-of-year summative assessment will help her next teacher know what she is ready to learn. Teachers can also conduct informal assessments throughout the year using games, activities, or other observational tools to track students' progress and tailor learning.
Okay, so we just saw a preview of a component of our assessment course. So in the chat, I would like for you to share your thoughts. What are your opinions on what was demonstrated there? What's your experience with these different types of assessments? I'll give you about 2 minutes to give your opinions, your thoughts about diagnostic and summative and formative assessments. And I'm going to pop open the chat on the right. And I'll put the question in the chat as well. Okay, I'm seeing some responses rolling in. Activities with computer assessment games. Very good. Knowing which to use and when. Yes, that's a very valid point. Each of these assessments serve an individual purpose. Yes. Especially for SWD, yeah. So with students with disabilities, oftentimes a lot of students go undiagnosed because sometimes I know in the past I've kind of come across situations where I didn't have the capacity to understand that they needed something more. And at my former school, we weren't using the type of assessments that gave us the information that we needed to know. Yes. And each assessment is critical and essential to teaching and learning. Yes, it is. Wow, Anisha says she loves the idea of informal assessments that aren't used for scoring, just information for the teacher. I agree. Anecdotal notes and just observations that are informal can sometimes give you more information for how to pivot on the spot than, a summative assessment that kind of comes up once it's a little too late. So I agree, Anisha. Ongoing, very good. Great. They are critical to use the data gained from assessments to make decisions. Yes, Melissa, yes. And so if you remember in the beginning when I was telling this story about how I just thought assessment was just something I had to get done to get my spreadsheet turned in, I did not see the value in assessment back then. All I knew was there were colors associated to these kids and, you know, these groups that were associated with it. But if you're really intentional about assessments and you know the areas of growth, you know what to do with the kids. Sherry says it's important to understand the data collected and use it, yes, to adjust teaching and learning. And Kimberly says to provide feedback to staff and students. LaShawn says it's important to determine our next steps for instruction. Agreed. Oh, Tricia says play-based assessment and developmental checklist. That's a great perspective, Tricia. What capacity are you serving in right now, Tricia? I'm interested. Or what grade levels do you teach? Because we don't often hear those conversations in the K-3 space. So thank you for lending that to this conversation. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. Oh, she's birth through 3. Great. That's what I was thinking. But you know what? That's so important for us because it's foundational for what occurs in the K-3 space. It can guide instruction. There's actually a model here in Atlanta where birth through 5 educators partner with K-3 educators and talk about how skills develop upon a continuum, and they transfer over skills and assessment data at certain schools from that student's portfolio, which is very helpful. So talking about assessment types, these were all great, valuable input. So thank you to everyone who responded. And now, in case you're interested in assessment types or you want a quick guide to share with some of your colleagues, on Cox campus, we have a resource that's called the Types of Assessment, and the link for that is in the chat. So I see we have some friends from birth through 3 here, as well as K-3. So we have a span of educators, and the great thing is Cox campus lets us have resources that fit our children of different ages. So on our Cox campus resource library, we have the types of assessment. And so we talk about universal screeners. And so the purpose of our universal screeners are to identify and predict students at risk for poor learning outcomes. But once we have our universal screener, we have to go a little bit deeper. We have to figure out where they are exactly. So we have our diagnostic assessments that determine specific learning strengths and weaknesses and skills and ability. And then we have our formative assessment that gets us information along the way. And of course, we have our summative that checks their understanding at the end of a unit or a session or even just an area of study. So this is available on Cox campus as well. And so since we have the assessment types quick guide, we also have the assessments available on Cox campus. So we're going to talk about what the virtual assessment guide is. So the virtual assessment guide is available on Cox campus, but it teaches you how to use the National Reading Panel's Big Five to inform virtual instructional practices. And so you can identify areas where your students are proficient, where they need help. It enables you to track progress and allows you to individualize your teaching to meet each student's needs. That was a lot of long E's and meet each student's needs. So just a quick show in the chat, can you drop whether you will be virtual or in person or hybrid this next upcoming semester? Will you be in person, virtual, or hybrid? Okay. I'm seeing some responses coming in. Oh, okay. Angela's hybrid for the grade level. Sherry is already back to school, currently in person. Kimberly's in person too. Okay. Great. District is the whole district is in person. And some to be determined with rising numbers, I understand. And at the moment, we're full back in. Yes, in person, says Rosa. Pamela says both. I was working with a teacher and she said she was showing me how she navigated working with the students who were on Zoom and working with the students in her room. So she would say, okay, well, these are my Zoomers and these are my roomers. And it was amazing to watch how she facilitated back and forth. And so if that doesn't give you a reason to let your superhero cape flutter, I don't know what will. I see concurrent teaching as well. Okay. Well, okay, so now I'm going to take a look at the virtual assessment guide. And the good thing about the virtual assessment guide is whether you've got Roomers, so room kids, or you've got Zoomers, Zoom kids, our assessment toolkit has everything that you need. Oh, that's interesting. They say that some are one at a time. Okay. All right, so let me share my screen for you again. All right, and then so you want to take a look at the assessment toolkit. So I'm utilizing the search bar here. And here's the resource that's called Assessing Our Students Toolkit Bundle. And if you notice, it comes virtually and it comes in the paper form. So if you'd like to administer it in a paper form, then you have that option as well here. And let's see if it'll open. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the assessment toolkit. I'm gonna zoom in because as I get older, so do my eyeballs. But we have a toolkit that is in line with our Assessing Our Students course. So it helps you to address the needs of each student, and it has a hyperlink to everything that's in the bundle. So it has the assessment flow chart, which we call the drill down method, which we'll get into in a second. The areas and content skill areas for universal screeners, how to find oral reading fluency with our assessment tool, a retelling rubric, a phonics survey, letter sound survey, phonological awareness survey, letter names, and then something we call our student data profile template, which is a great way for how to organize all of that information. So all you have to do is to click download on that if you would like the hard copy of that. But if you would like the virtual copy, oh, I lost my place. Back in the toolkit, back in the resource library. Okay, so the one that we looked at just now is the one on the right, but let's take a look at the one on the left. The Virtual Literacy Assessment Teacher Toolkit has all of our science-backed, embedded, and real assessments that we have used in the field in one place. So all you have to do is click download, and then it will just pop up. You'll get it also in your mailbox, just in case your download folder is a little odd, but you'll get that as well. And this will actually open up in a PowerPoint. Okay, so let's look at the virtual toolkit first. The virtual toolkit, it starts out with a table of content and tips for how to share your screen using Google Meet and using other digital tools to connect with your students. So this is the assessment drill down flow chart. So just to go back into what our assessments are used for, we like to use assessments that are backed by the science and that are really aligned to what the research shows, which is best for children. If you don't have assessments at your school, you can utilize ours. If you have the ones at your school, great. They probably fall into these categories. So the drill down chart is pretty much, it's kind of like a board game where you know, like you're moving forward and you know which way to go after you make it to a certain step. So for instance, let's say you're assessing your students in oral reading fluency, but if you're finding that their oral reading fluency is below grade level, then you want to give them the phonics survey. And if they have a low score in phonics survey, you want to drill down even further and go into the letter sound assessment. If they're not performing well with letter sounds, then you would go into phonological awareness and letter naming. So once you find your stopping point, it'll tell you on this flow chart which skills are assessed, and then it'll help you to find their strengths and weaknesses. So this is the one for 1st through 5th, and then this one is for kindergarten. And I know this is a K-3 space that we're in right now, but I'm sure a lot of us can agree that we've seen children in varying abilities. So just because a child may be in 5th grade, maybe they could benefit from some of the resources available for 3rd grade. So we just gave that for instructional coaches and school leaders to utilize as a whole school-based approach. Going back to the toolkit, you'll see that the instructions are here. All of the virtual administration assessments are here. The scoring guides are here. Just PDF forms, retelling rubrics. And then you'll see an actual assessment. So here are the slides that the students can view, and these words in the assessment follow the CBC pattern and they go into digraphs with short vowels. And you'll see that we have a mix of words that are real words and nonsense words. And nonsense words are so important to assess because it tells us if students can understand the rules of decoding words that they may not be familiar with and words that they have not seen before. So this will be a child-facing document that you can just utilize and expand your screen. And we have the scoring sheets that you can print out or you can type into the PDF as well to just mark where students go all the way up to multisyllabic level. So we have that for decoding for phonics, and then we have the letter sound survey. And if you want to press play, you'll hear that we've embedded the sound into there as an example. We're really big on phonemes over here, so we want to make sure that we model and have examples of the articulation of the phonemes without schwas, but our scoring sheet gives you an example for where you can kind of scribble in some notes like student said "buh" instead of "buh." Like you can notate that as well. And all the scoring sheets are attached at the end of the virtual toolkit. So they're all here for your convenience. Now, let me stop sharing. So now that we've looked at the assessment toolkit, we're going to play a little game. I like to play games. Games make things fun. Games make things engaging. Okay, so we're going to play a game called Guess the Assessment Type. So if you could share the slide that has our lovely emojis on it. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to utilize the reactions in the Zoom feature, and we're going to use the reactions to respond to the questions. Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario, and then if it applies to the first, oops, I left something in there. Excuse the tear part. If it applies to diagnostic assessment, click on the heart. If it applies to summative assessment, click on the smiley face. And if it applies to formative assessment, you can press the party popper as your reaction. So, question number 1. This type of assessment gauges students' progress along the way. Go ahead and click on your reaction, whether that is diagnostic, summative, or formative. Again, this type of assessment gauges student progress along the way. All right, I'm seeing a lot of responses here. And if you clicked on the party popper, your response is correct. Question number 2. This type of assessment gives you information on where to start with your students. Will you click the heart for diagnostic, or will you click the smiley face for summative, or will you click the party popper for formative? This type of assessment gives you information on where to start. All right, and the last question, this type of assessment gives you information on what students have learned from teaching. Will you click the heart, the smiley face, or the party popper? The laughing face is okay as well. I see that coming through. Or I see some wow faces. And I've recently updated Zoom, so I just learned that you can put all the emojis in there. So if you hadn't updated your Zoom, go ahead and update it. So yes, the smiley face is the example of what information is gauged from when you are assessing students after they have been taught. Thank you. Okay. So we've taken a look at the assessment types. Yes, Pamela, thank you. Thank you so much. We've taken a look at the assessment types that are on Cox campus. And now I just want to look a little bit at how we would organize the data. So on Cox, we have something that's called a student data profile. And student data profiles are so very, very helpful. So for me, Microsoft Excel is not my best friend, unfortunately. That's my confession of the day, but I really like student data profiles, and here's why. With our student data profile template, you can insert a student's picture on this sheet, and then you can have the school's name, the child's name, and then the teacher and the grade. And this is so helpful because it helped me to see each student as like a face, as an actual student, and not just like student ID number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I really wanted to put a face to what was being seen and what was being shown and what the assessment information was being shown. So student data profiles are here on our Cox campus, and the link is in the chat. But if you notice, they have areas for us to include our universal screeners and what information we gauge from our universal screeners. Then going back to that drill down chart, whether we administered the phonics decoding survey or we talked about phonological awareness and letter names and letter sounds, it has an area for you to itemize the strengths and areas of growth for students within this chart. And so it's separated into beginning, middle, and end. And this is such a useful tool. I've seen teachers utilize this in meeting with parents. Angela, you took the words out of my mouth. Angela Frizzle, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Angela says this is great for parent-teacher conferences. Yes, you read my mind, absolutely. So you can show them just a quick snapshot and say, this is your student, this is how they've actually grown, and it's measurable. I've seen people use it in other types of meetings. I've seen SST meetings. I've seen teachers pass them along from one grade level to the next. So if they go through beginning, middle, and end of second grade, they'll pass the folders over to their next year's teacher and see where they were. And of course, that doesn't account for summer slide or information loss since we've been out of school so much. There's a lot of variables, but just giving that next teacher that information is a little bit of insight that is available with our student data profiles. So we're going to show how we can get to that on Cox campus as well. And before, okay, let me share one more time. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we are. So our student data profile, and there's information inside our assessing our course, our students course, that gives us information on how to use the student data profile. So you see it isolates each assessment and it talks about what skills and abilities it measures within the assessment, and then all of that information is here as well. And you can see the assessment flow chart is here for you, that you can also use, and have a handout that you can share with other teachers and other people within your school. So if you're going back to the course, and in the chat, if you could just give a thumbs up, or you could do a reaction or say yes if you've already taken this Assessing Our Students course. And if you have not, you can say not yet. Because that will help me to know how, that will give me a nice assessment formatively of how deep to go into this course. Okay, I'm seeing a couple not yets. I'm seeing some yeses with some exclamation points. Great. All right, well, if you have not taken the course yet, of course, we encourage you to register for Cox Campus and take all of our courses. You'll see a lot of familiar faces in there if you've been attending the whole summer series. And if you have taken it already, you have the ability to navigate and go specifically into a certain area. So once you go into a certain area, you can just click in and get the information that you want. So we're going to watch a quick snippet of the video in our course that's in lesson 3, step 1, that talks about the student data profiles.
You can't hear it.
Thank you. Okay, somebody chimed in and said you can't hear it. Is that correct? Okay, audio issues. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not playing the sound.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just got a message. I need to, oops, hold for 1 second. Let's try this one more time.
On our visit to the doctor,
There you
Can we
go.
hear?
we may notice that the information gathered about us goes in a chart that can be a profile of us that keeps track of our health and helps in making the best decisions for our future. After assessments have been given, we can use the data we've collected to create profiles for each of our students.
She climbed all the way up
Go
here.
ahead, let's go.
These student data profiles can help us keep track of their progress so we can target our teaching efforts. A student data profile is like a snapshot of each child's data from the beginning, middle, and end of the year, using multiple measures based on the assessments we've given. A student data profile contains student name, teacher name, grade level, and assessment scores from the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. In order to see our students as more than test scores, it is ideal to include a photo in each student data profile. Student data profiles can also be shared and used by others. They can be extremely valuable to next year's teachers as they prepare for students coming into their classrooms. We can also engage families by sharing information from student data profiles to help them understand their child's progress. As partners, we can all work together to make the best possible decisions for the future of each child. Because different schools use different assessments, student data profiles might look different on a school-to-school basis. But the purpose is the same: helping us to know our students so we can put them on the winning path of becoming fluent readers.
Okay, so that was a brief summary of student data profiles. And if you would like to find out more, we encourage you to take a look at that resource on Cox campus at your leisurely time. So now we're going to continue and move ahead. Just so you know, this assessment session is broken into two portions. So you all were with me for assessment part 1, but next week you'll be in store for assessment part 2. So we're going to go deeper in depth with those information and resources and offerings for what's happening in the assessment world on Cox campus. So that's just a heads up. Now let's talk about what's one takeaway you got from this session. So if you got one takeaway from this session, what is something that you gained or something that you want to know more about? Because this session is pretty cool because it's a two-parter. So the facilitator for that session, she's going to take note of what steps that you are inquiring about next, and that will be included. We're going to collaborate on that. So what is one key takeaway that you got away from this training? The poll everywhere is going to launch, and the link is in the chat. All right, so as you fill in your responses, the Wordle will generate with your, oh great, I'm seeing more responses. The Wordle will generate and it'll shift around and we'll see which words are most common. Okay, and the more frequently and more commonly that terms are used, the larger they'll become, and they'll generate in this great image that's a graphic that we can utilize. And I'm sure a lot of you all utilize Wordles in your classroom. So this is the fun way that you can engage your students as well to see what they've learned from a lesson. Tricia, thank you for leaving your response in the chat. Not all assessments are created equally, and some may be better for some children than others. Exactly. Imagine back to that analogy of going to the doctor and you say you have a stomach ache and he says, oh, maybe just, go lay down. You could be lactose intolerant. It could be something more. So you want to have them drill down so they can pinpoint the exact cause and figure out what to do and how you can get better. And that's what we do with assessments as well. So finding exactly what our children need is the point of assessment, and then measuring how well that's working. So great job. If you all want to take a screenshot of this Wordle, you can. It looks beautiful, and I'm seeing some really great terms on here. Yeah, it does break up the sentences. It does break up the sentences. So it's interesting how many terms repeat within the sentences also. And there's a way to kind of like match it if you look at the colors and see which one has the punctuation mark. But go ahead. I'm seeing more responses come in. So it would be cool if they made a site that's kind of like Wordle, but sentence-able, I guess, where it kept the sentence together and enlarged the words as they were repeated.
In
but
progress.
Yes. But yeah, right. Yeah. I'm hearing a response. At this time, I know I have been talking and rambling because I have been really excited about this session. As you all fill in your Wordle, I did leave some time for us to have some question, answer, conversation, discussion, or just talk about our hopes and dreams for the 2021-2022 academic year. So please feel free to unmute yourself, put your response in the chat or talk. We are people over here at Cox campus, and we love educators. So if you have a comment or a suggestion or a question for assessment part 2, feel free to ask that question now.
Hey, Yvette, this is Anisha. I do have a quick question.
Hi, Anisha. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Let me put on my video.
Doing great. Thank you.
And this, I don't know, you guys may address this next week, but I did have a question about the, Lord, now left my mind, the pinpoint chart. What is it called? The
drill down. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
The drill down chart. So when utilizing that, is it your recommendation that like you always start with fluency, or can you start anywhere and kind of it be fluid as to how you drill down? What are your thoughts about that?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that question. And so we can also include that in next session, but it's kind of strange. Like you wouldn't really want to start with oral reading fluency for kindergartner because they may not be reading and it may not be fluently. So what I've seen schools do is they'll start with the letter name survey, they'll start with the letter sound survey, and they'll start with phonological awareness. And they'll do that in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year. And then by the end of the year, that's when they'll do the decoding survey. And then that's when they'll start with the oral reading fluency. And if students are unable to reach that point, then they'll do the drill down method. But for every other grade, you usually start with oral reading fluency and then you can drill down or scale up depending on what the student needs.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. That was a great question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem. All right, do we have any other questions, comments, hopes and dreams? Any volunteers before you become voluntold? That's my favorite word that I just learned, voluntold. I'll give you a few more seconds for questions and answers.
So for those who are doing both virtual, like they're doing the hybrid, would you suggest using the same one and just printing out the one for the assessment for those in the classroom, and then just use the virtual tool at home and that way it's consistent, or just do it different ways?
Angela, that's a great connecting piece. Yes, so the virtual toolkit and the paper assessments are available on Cox campus. So I
And
think
they're
it'd
the
be, yes, they are the same. So there's a couple of different options on there, because there's some options about like what you can use for like informal decoding inventory. We have some options for progress monitoring, but just make sure that the terms are the same on there. So it's called the decoding survey or the phonics survey on each one. But that's a really good point. Yes. Yes. And Angela, I love your Mickey mask.
Thanks.
So
I probably have
pretty.
like 30 to 40 Disney ones, and so I wear a different one every day.
Right. Right. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in my co-working office right now because my internet at home was being weird and I didn't want it to break up while I had everybody here in this space. So that's the echo and everything that you all hear. But again, if you don't have a question that you want to speak and unmute yourself for, I see that there's some questions. Thank you for the clarification. Yes. And someone said that great information. They love your energy. Thank you, because I have not had my coffee yet today. Me some, but yes. And, you know, during this time, we really have to keep each other lifted up as we go into the school year. We all know firsthand that it's not always easy, but it's really worth it. And with some of the tools and resources available on Cox campus, our number one goal is to make life easier for educators, and we can kind of like stop reinventing the wheel or searching around here for what's best, what's science-backed, what will give us the information we need for our kids. So we want to help to make your lives easier. So if you come across any questions that might arise later on or over the weekend as you're relaxing, I'm sure, not preparing for your classroom, I'm sure you won't be doing that. Feel free to join us on Cox campus on the discussion board. So you'll see that we have the discussion board there. Cheryl asks, can we convert the student data profile to an Excel spreadsheet? At this moment, we cannot. We only have the fillable PDF and PowerPoint. A lot of teachers like the PowerPoint because it's easy to drag and drop the students' pictures in. Like I know a couple of my teachers use Infinite Campus, so they just use their school pictures, or some teachers, you know, they just take a picture on their phone. And of course, if a student doesn't have like a privacy exemption or something, then they'll just put it on the PowerPoint, but it's not an Excel spreadsheet. Not yet, but that's good feedback because like I told you, I don't like Excel. So I might be the reason why we don't have it in Excel, but that's a good growing area for us too. And Angela, I have not had any coffee yet because I would be bouncing around the walls if I did. And so I'm going to wait until tomorrow to get through my Friday. That's my once a week coffee. But again, I thank you all for your participation, your commitment to doing what's best for students, your attendance today. And I really, really look forward to seeing you next week for part 2 of assessment. So enjoy yourselves, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you next week at Assessment Type Part 2 on August 12th, same time, same place. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.